Hey, everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
So $460 for a lure, as Brian put it in a follow-up text, that you got to rub like a baseball glove.
You're going to put that over the fish, and you're going to just keep pummeling him until he eats it.
Including one big-ass red snapper on what, from what I can tell, looks to be a dropper loop rig baited with green glow-in-the-dark Ushy figurines.
Anybody can put stupid music to fly tying videos, and anybody can do that.
Bent! Good morning, degenerate anglers. Welcome to Bent, the fishing podcast located closest to the food court entrance right between Aeropostale and the Piercing Pagoda. Ooh. I'm Joe Cermelli.
I'm Miles Nolte. And I think we're about to drop our second Kevin Smith movie reference in less than 10 episodes, which really tells you all you need to know about this show.
You dumb bastard. It's not a schooner, it's a sailboat.
A schooner is a sailboat, stupid head.
Man, I can almost smell the CK1 wafting from the Macy's. You know, we all grow up though, right? And nowadays it's not the smell of whippets that gets me feeling alive. It's the waft of Black Rifle coffee brewing in a kitchen with a fridge on its last legs. That's now, my problem, not my parents' problem anymore. Yeah,
that is such a sweet smell. And by that, I mean the coffee, not the burnout fan in Joe's fridge. And it's one that we get to enjoy daily because Bent is presented by our good buds at Black Rifle Coffee Company. If you like quality coffee and you want to hear more of us, head over to blackriflecoffee.com/meateater and maybe get adventurous. Give their extra dark roast Murdered Out, just like my truck, a shot. It wakes me up even when my kids start screaming at 4 a.m.
I've actually got some Murdered Out, and I truly have been enjoying it. It's very dark, very bold. But listen, whatever you purchase, be sure to enter the promo code MeatEater to get 20% off your entire order.
We kicked this off with a Mallrats reference. Kudos to us. And it got me thinking about all the time that I wasted wandering around malls and trying to hit on girls and getting kicked out for skateboarding. And it dawns on me that I've never seen a mall with a tackle shop in it.
You're right. I'll just add, you got kicked out for skateboarding. I got kicked out once for stealing giant Easter eggs from the Easter Bunny quadrant. It was after Easter, so I was like, nobody will care, but...
That's pretty good. Oddly enough, I also got kicked out of more than one mall for not wearing shoes. It's a true story. Anyway.
Oh my God, that's good. You're right, though. The mall was supposed to be the place to find everything you wanted in one convenient location, right? But thinking back on it, man, none of the 13 malls within a half hour of me growing up had one. But, dude, I will tell you what, though, oddly, right, I once ended up at a mall in Brazil, in the city of Manaus, right in the heart of the Amazon. And it had one of the most badass tackle shops I've ever been to in the mall.
No. I've been there. Like, I know the mall that you're talking about. I went to Manaus one time because I was also lucky enough to get taken on a trip there, and I went to that mall. It was like
it's got to be the same mall. It's the one with all the guys with machine guns out in front of every entrance, right?
Yeah. And there was that crazy.
That's the one.
There was a tackle shop in there, and I of course I went to it, and they had like some of the weirdest lures. Like I've never seen those lures anywhere else before or since.
Oh, I dropped a few $100 like it was nothing, and I still have a bunch of them today. I still fished them today. But some of them are so cool that a few that are kind of like not, I don't know. They're just like, basically it's a spook, but because it has a different shape and I bought it in Brazil, it's cooler than all the other spooks I have. You know, it's probably not more productive, but I do throw them with caution because I just can't replace them.
No,
Neither one of us are going back to the mall in Manaus anytime soon. But dude, I got to ask you, I had no idea you'd been there.
Yes.
Did you happen to stop by the store in that mall that sold nothing but Michael Jackson memorabilia?
God, it was a long time ago. I'm sure I passed by it. I did not go in there. I remember seeing like the blacklight posters with Michael and like glitter or whatever. Yeah, and I think his monkey had a few posters. I remember seeing it, but I did not go in. Yeah.
Dude, I went in twice. And I ended up I went with the Moonwalker pillow shams and the Bubbles the Chimp bath salts.
Oh,
so, you know.
Well, Bubbles, that was the name. I couldn't remember. Oh, well,
yep.
I'm sure that was money well spent.
It was. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, getting to the actual things we're supposed to talk about here, we don't actually have a tackle shop report for you guys this week, but we do have a fly shop report that comes to us from Joe's home state.
That's right. And you know, it's early October. Dry fly action is winding down quickly around here as those temps start to drop. But for anyone in North Jersey, Eastern PA, or the Catskills of New York, there are a few hatch options still kicking around. And we thought, who better to fill you in than Sammy Gennardo from Gennardo and Sons Fly Shop, a New Jersey staple right next door to Scacchetti and Sons Plumbing and DiMortale and Sons Florist up there in Franklin Lakes.
Hey everybody, how yous doing? This is Sammy Gennardo from Gennardo and Sons Fly Shop in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. I'm here with the fishing report. Lots of yous apparently headed up to the Catskills this weekend to fish the D. That's a good move. Streams in New Jersey ain't doing shit. Ken Lockwood Gorge, fill it in, it's dead. So you've been asking me about the hatches up there. This is what I know right now. You're going to see some blue wing olives. Now, my buddy Richie was over in the Dream Catchers. Richie from Newark. He was fishing the Dream Catchers, and he said he saw a big 20, eating size 24 BWO, sipping it just under the surface. Now, the important thing here is to remember that if you're going to be fishing the fish just under the surface, you're not going to see to eat. You may see a little dimple on the water, but could be a fly, might not. So you got to use the Jedi mind tricks to figure out if that fish just ate your fly. Slowly lift the rod and see what happens. The other option is that you yell, eat that, at the fish. Now, if you yell, eat that, the percentage that the fish ate your fly is going to be a little bit higher than if you don't. Isonychias. You're going to see a few of those in the riffs. Now, you're just going to blind cast a big ISO. Now, a good fly for that is tied by my buddy, Jerry Tombrowski from Weehawken. It's called Jerry's Rattler. Now, it's got a big rapper hackle, bro. I mean, this thing floats like a cork. And you're going to put that over the fish, and you're going to just keep pummeling him until he eats it. Other than that, you got flying ants. Now, those are here one day, they're gone the next. My only prediction for you is if you get a dab of rain, little bit of humidity in the air, and just a touch of wind, you might see them on the water. You see them on the water, they're going to be 18s to 24s, with fish keying in more on the 24s than the 18s. Tie them small, just a wrap of thread, a little puff of white CDC like the trout hunter, you're golden. Nymphing, you got to get it deep, real deep. You want like 10 split shot on that thing. Make sure your strike indicator is rigged and rocked and ready. And that's when you see that thing drops. Give them the lead, bro. Give them the lead. All right, that's what I got for you. Hope you get into some 20s. If you run into any car trouble whatsoever, I want you to stop by. See my guy Troy, West Main Auto in Hancock. Bang up job. Have a good weekend.
Giving them the lead. I can
man.
I can totally relate to that, man. I'm the weirdo here out west who doesn't hate nymphing. I actually think it's kind of fun. I'm good with it.
I kind of do, but I mean, if you grew up on the East Coast and you were a trout fisherman, you had to learn how to nymph. right? Like hatches and rising fish were a luxury. Like it's not Montana, like where a stimmy just magically calls them up 365.
Not true. None of that is true.
Yes, I think it is. And if you weren't catching trout here, you didn't change the fly, right? You just added more lead. Yeah. That's how we did it.
Dredging.
And continue to do so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I will. You have bought into the hype that all the Montana outfitters and guides want you to believe that it's dry fly fishing 365. It's not true. Don't believe them. But since we're on the subject of dredging, something I also am quite good at, let's dig up some dirt and transition from that completely bogus fly shop to a very real one in Minnesota. We're going to check in with its very real proprietor and former guide who's got yet another story that will make you question how humanity has survived as long as we have. This is Smooth Moves.
Why did you do that? Why? Why did you do that, Terry? Oh my God.
Joining us today on Smooth Moves, I am very happy to have my dear friend, Mr. Robert Hawkins. Robert, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm
pretty well.
Good, man. We're good. And you own what might be my favorite fly shop on the planet, Bob Mitchell's Fly Shop in St. Paul, Minnesota. And in case anybody hears any weird background noise, you're doing this during open store hours. So there are people shopping for leaders and tippets and things in the background occasionally.
Maybe some midges.
That's what a high quality, classy program we are. We actually take people away from their real jobs so that they can help us out with ours.
Yeah. They are just jamming their pockets full of midges while you're in the back office recording with us right now.
That's
so
right.
Just write us a bill. We'll take care of it. But before the fly shop ownership thing happened for you, you spent a lot of time guiding in Montana and in Alaska, did that for a lot of years.
Yep.
So what is our smooth move from you today? Where did this happen? What's going down? Hit us with it.
So we were getting out of the plane in the morning. We got up, hopped in the plane, flew to the river, and one of our clients at our lodge are always very extremely well off and always have the best gear. And
this is in Alaska, I take it.
Yep. In Alaska, we just landed at the top of Gibraltar Lake, and we were going to blow up the rafts and float down for the day and end up in Lake Iliamna. But so, we park on the beach, and the plane kind of sits there and hangs out and waits for everybody to get their rafts blown up. And the clients are kind of assembling their rods. And this one particular client, he'd gotten all 4 fly rods. He and his wife's, they each had 2. They brought backups, right? So they had 2 each just in case they broke one during the day. And the plane is backed into the beach. It's not running or anything. And the client has all 4 rods in his hand, and he does this like I'm pretending to cast movement, like he does like this back cast sort of movement, and all 4 rods clipped the tailing edge of the airplane wing, and all 4 rods just went whoosh. And so he broke all 4 of his rods in one fell swoop.
That's amazing.
So, yep.
I mean, honestly, I've seen 2 rods broken in the course of a day before, maybe 3, but 4 in one false cast.
Yep, in one just silly false cast. And he was one of those kind of angry clients, he's just always edgy, and I actually ended up having them in my raft that day, and it was also him and his wife, and they're like the bickery back and forth couple, and so all it was like one of my worst days on the river with those 2. And he also that day, he's the guy that will say, "Hey, Mr. Guide, can you pour me a glass of wine, please?" Mr.
You don't have
Guide.
a name.
No, I'm just Mr. Guide. Yep. So it was just a brutal day, but that's how it started.
So what did he have to do? Use the stuff that you guys had as backup, or
yeah. We always bring a couple rods too, just in case. But that ruined his day instantly. No matter what we could have caught 200 fish that day. His day was ruined instantly at the beginning. And I think we did have a great day that day, but it was just all day. Well, you did this and blah, blah, blah.
Isn't it fun to be right in the middle of a marital squabble all day on the river? It just makes you feel good about humanity.
It's the worst. It's tough guiding married couples sometimes.
That right there, my friend, is why you always fill out the warranty card.
Oh,
Though
that was painful.
I'd love to read some of the emails fly rod companies get trying to cover smooth moves like that. I went to cast a CDC merger in an open field, and your rod broke in 5 places. It must be incredible to read some.
They don't read those emails. Like, that's why they have the unconditional warranty, so they don't have to read the emails, right? Because they know just like we do that 90% of rods get broken in car doors or when your dog steps on them. Like, that's how it happens.
Yep.
That, I think, is why the unconditional warranty thing started, was just to cut down on paperwork, truly. But let's switch over from the river to the ocean for this week's installment of Fin Clips, where we teach you everything you need to know about a fish you probably never thought you wanted to know about in the first place. This week, Joe is going to clue us all in to a species that makes European taste buds frolic with delight and American anglers pout in whiny self-pity.
Squalus acanthius was once the most abundant shark species on planet Earth. And for those of you not fluent in Latin genuses, that's the spiny dogfish. Now, if you wet a line for any kind of bottom fish from, Greenland to Miami, strong chance that you've encountered a spiny. And there's also a strong chance you're rolling your eyes right now, wondering why I'm devoting any time to spur dogs when I could be using this time to give you tips for catching more fluke, flounder, snowy grouper, sea bass, porgies, or a shitload of other things you're usually trying to catch while you're catching spiny dogfish. Well, as Rage Against the Machine once said, know your enemy. Because while you Boston boys and Hatteras heavers might hate spinies, they are gold elsewhere in the world. Aside from pretty much the entire eastern seaboard, spinies ply inshore and offshore waters all across northern Europe, the southern tips of Africa and South America, and even southern Australia, though, knowing my luck, even if I was on a dream trip to Fiji, I'd still manage to catch one, right? Stateside, the average doggy measures anywhere from 12 to 30 inches, though specimens pushing 60 inches have been recorded. In England, where spiny dogfish are arguably the most popular as a food fish, they're labeled as huss in fish and chip shops. Historically, the Brits sold them as rock salmon until Big Ben or Parliament or whoever eventually came along and said, no, stop that, it's just too misleading. The French, on the other hand, could care less and still sell them as small salmon. The Italian stallions call them con bianco, which according to my translator Google just means white can, and the Germans seem to think it sells better as Zippoling, or sea eel, instead of the more appropriate sea shark. But here in the States, eating spiny dogfish just can't seem to catch on among the masses. Tons of spinies are hauled up by trawlers throughout the Atlantic every year in search of more popular species, and those doggies are generally discarded as bycatch, even though organizations like the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance has sponsored initiatives to get sustainably caught doggies in Cape Cod restaurants and fish markets. Now, according to my inside source at Wikipedia, the UK-based International Union for Conservation of Nature, as well as Greenpeace, have added the spiny dogfish to their seafood red lists and claim global stocks have decreased significantly, even as much as 95% around Europe, because Euro McDonald's can't sell those McRock salmon and McSeal sandwiches fast enough. Funny thing is, those in the know, me being one of them, will confirm that if I gave you a piece of dogfish disguised in a crispy panko breading, you'd guess it was any number of more popular firm white meat salty bottom fish. But to be fair, the times I've had it, someone else caught it and cooked it for me. And every single time I enjoyed it with a little tartar sauce, I said to myself, these are really good. I should start keeping some of these. That attitude changes quickly, though, when you're burning boat fuel with a brain locked on stripers, freezing your nuts off in the winter for cod, or dreaming of doormat fluke, and every diamond jig, clam strip, and gulp teaser gets wolfed by a spiny the second you drop it down. And it almost makes it pretty hard to believe that the spiny dogfish are in any kind of trouble. And when you move 10 times and can't get away from them, you just hate them so much that you can't lower yourself to filling that sexy Yeti coffin box with the scourge of the sea, let alone post a picture of you holding one with a smile on Instagram. Especially when you consider that spiny dogfish get their name from two incredibly hard, thick needle-point spines on their backs, both just forward of their two dorsal fins. And they're there for a reason, and that reason is to ruin your day. A dogfish will writhe and twist and swing its tail around and arch its back to make every effort to stick you good while you're trying to unhook one. Those spines are sharp enough to go through clothing, gloves. I've even seen them go through PVC rain gear. Bonus, those spines inject you with a mild venom that, while non-toxic, just seems to make a wound akin to getting stabbed with a splintering wooden kebab skewer hurt a lot fucking more. When you are forced to unhook a doggy every 30 seconds, all day, suddenly you no longer want to eat one, you just want it off the goddamn boat.
I don't know about everyone else, but I just got hungry for spiny dogfish, tater tots, and ranch dressing, which here in Montana we call Montana mayonnaise or sometimes honky sauce because, the honkies, they love it. But fight that craving. Don't pause now to swing into the drive-thru at Euro McDonald's because we are about to pump your guts full of fish news.
Fish news!
That escalated quickly.
So this is Fish News, where we tell you all the fun, interesting fish and fishing-related things you need to know happening recently out there in the world. Reminder, this is a competition. Miles and I do not know what stories the other guy is bringing to the table. And as always, our mighty audio engineer, Phil, at the end will declare a victor, and I'm coming off a win. And I'm happy about that because I was losing confidence in myself there for a little while.
Don't get too comfortable in that chair. That's all I'm saying. You better call fives on that if you're getting up.
Not only did I win, he managed to work in a Celine Dion and Sarah McLachlan reference in his announcement of that win.
So good.
He's fantastic. He's the real talent here.
It's true.
If I'm being honest.
That is true.
But it always benefits to be the leadoff man. That is me this week, and I'm excited. Okay, I'm very excited. I love both of my stories, largely because both of them are kind of going to go off the rails a bit. I'm going to come from left field, and it feels good. And we're allowed to do this because we make the rules, okay? We decide not only what is news, but which news stories are the most importantest that you need to hear. And this first one, I'm just going to get right to it. Just warm my heart. I love it so. From the Cape Cod Times, headline, Obsessed Jaws fan replicates Chief Brody's ride. I didn't even have to read anything more about the story to know that this man is my hero. Okay, so from the story, Gabe DiSeverio calls himself a Jaws nut. He's into anyone or anything that has any connection to the 1975 killer shark blockbuster movie Jaws. The obsession has infiltrated all facets of his life, just like it has mine. We are connected here.
You guys are fully simpatico.
It says, DiSeverio's vacations have been Jaws themed. His business and conservation efforts revolve around sharks, and his daughter's middle name is Ellen, after the Jaws character Police Chief Martin Brody's wife. And then he's quoted here saying, I'm pretty sure I can scientifically prove that it's the greatest movie ever made. Gabe, I will help fund that research. I will chip in so we can finally settle what us Jaws freaks really know is already the truth. So a little background, Gabe is the owner of the Spicy Shark Hot Sauce Company, okay? And the story goes on and says, part of his Jaws fandom includes a 15-year search for a 1975 Chevy Blazer like the one Chief Brody drove in the movie. And while business lagged during COVID-19, the Portsmouth resident scoured the internet, saw one for auction, maybe in his price range, so he asked his wife, Jill, what she thought. And here's the quote from Gabe. She said, you work 8 days a week, you've never bought yourself a toy, and you've been talking about this since our third date. She's
Dreams
a keeper.
do come true.
She's a keeper, Gabe, my man. Good on you. So Gabe finally found his new Blazer in North Carolina, and after he got it home, he enlisted the help of some friends to cut off the hardtop, paint the roll bar black, repaint the truck to perfectly match Brody's, and let me tell you, it's spot on. And I love this, right? He ordered Vanity Amity license plates and had custom Amity Police Department stickers from the Hampton Sticker Cabana adhered to the side. And this is what Gabe says. There are 2 or 3 other replica Jaws Blazers out there, but they don't have the right lettering, he said. You got to have the exact font. Damn right you got to have the exact font. All right.
I was skeptical of this guy until right now. If he is a font geek, I can hang out with him.
Wait. The Blazer is named Martin, of course, after Chief Martin Brody, but Gabe is quoted in the piece as saying, you can call him Marty.
Well, good.
He also considers the Jaws replica Blazer a part of his family. He says, I have a daughter. This is my son. So listen, I reached out to Gabe and asked for more photos of Marty, and you can see those on my Instagram page. That's at joe.cermelli138. And the next time I'm on the Cape, you will see photos of me driving this Blazer, okay, assuming it's not a stick shift. So, Gabe, bravo. Bravo.
Oh, man. That is the most Joe Cermelli fish news story that I have ever heard in my life.
And that's fine. If it earns me a loss, I don't care, because I couldn't not.
No, you couldn't leave that one on the table. You had to take that. I couldn't agree more.
It's so bad. It's so perfect. I mean, it is absolutely perfect. The truck is amazing. It's amazing.
I think you might have found like a long lost brother that your parents didn't tell you about. Like you guys were separated at birth, and now you're going to come back together. And that's just a heartwarming tale for anyone. Everyone loves a story of families reunited.
I've done all the things. I've done the stupid Martha's Vineyard tour, like where all the things happen. And I remember when Jaws the Revenge, which was terrible, came out, my parents took me to a Universal's like traveling museum thing where they had all these props, and they had the shark from Jaws 4, and I saw nothing else in the entire exhibit. We just stayed with the shark. So my dad was like, all right, come on, we got to go get dinner. We want to look at the Indiana Jones stuff. I was like, no, the shark.
No, I'm here for the sharks. Well, it's always been somewhat ironic to me that the Jaws thing is centered on the east coast of North America, because while there are white sharks there, that's not really the part of the world that's known for white sharks.
It's true.
You know, like,
I'll give you that. You're right.
Even the California coast is known more for white sharks. But if you really want to talk about white sharks, you think about Australia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like that's where people really, really think about them. And, you know, it just so happens that this first story I'm coming with, it comes from Australia, strangely enough. And we know for a fact, as of last week, we have at least one listener in Australia. So we're basically talking to him.
Hopefully he's listening now.
Yeah.
Hopefully we still have him. He hasn't been eaten by a great white.
All right. So quick question, Joe, as a father of young kids, have you ever heard of Ushies?
I've heard of many things, but not that. Or if I have heard of it, I just like blocked it out of my brain. I'm like, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what that is. Yeah, but I don't think so.
You've seen them. I hadn't heard of them either, but you've seen them. There's these kind of squished down little plastic figurines in the shape of popular cartoon characters. All right.
Okay.
And apparently they're like the new Beanie Babies in that they are completely useless crap that people have been duped into collecting. And just like with other kids' collectibles, you know, for example, say Pogs, the common ones are totally worthless and the rare ones are crazy valuable. Someone supposedly paid $15,000 for one of these lumps of molded plastic on eBay. All right. So
I believe it though. I mean, it's worth that right now, this very minute. So good on you. There's a lot of Beanie Babies out there that aren't worth shit anymore. I may or may not know personally, you know.
I don't want to get too far off here, but in researching this story, I found a headline that actually said, "Are Ushies the new Bitcoin?" Anyway. Ushies are a point of contention in Australia, where the store chain Woolworths just ran a second annual promotion giving them away to any customer who spends $30. Last year, this giveaway led to grown-ass people rioting, fighting, and threatening each other over lifeless children's toys. So
it's like Tickle Me Elmo.
It totally
remember that?
is. Oh, I remember.
Right on. Yeah.
And while some Australians clearly love the little buggers, others are pissed. One woman wrote on the Woolworths Facebook page, quote, "They're terrible for the environment. They often end up in landfill or as litter." Another customer wrote, quote, "Very saddened and disappointed to hear that Woolworths are bringing back the plastic Ushies that cause so much destruction to our already struggling environment." And the issue, of course, is that these little plastic figurines may be beloved and valuable now, but they, like all their cute collectible predecessors, will soon be an afterthought. Just fleeting cultural refuse destined for landfills where they will slowly break down and turn into more microplastic choking rivers, lakes, and oceans.
They'll be right there with all the LOL dolls that my kid has. Same thing, same premise.
Same thing. But there's a bright side here. One industrious angler down under has actually found a viable use for these detestable wads of petroleum distillate. Mark Pace of Queensland is using Ushies as snapper lures.
Nice.
Mark posted
repurpose on that.
Yeah, it's great, dude. You got to check this out. Mark posted photos and video of himself on Facebook reefing in snapper of various types and sizes, including one big-ass red snapper on what, from what I could tell, looks to be a dropper loop rig baited with green glow-in-the-dark Ushy figurines. In the video on his post, we see Mark lifting a fish over the gunnel, turning to the camera and saying,
You know what? Ushies, mate.
Pace's post just says, quote, anyone have any glow-in-the-dark Ushies they don't want? Happy to pay $1 each. And I'm guessing Mark didn't really think this through, like as a social media move, because if his goal was to get people to sell him their glow-in-the-dark Ushies for cheap, then he probably shouldn't have let on that they're dynamite snapper lures. I mean, good luck getting anyone to give them away to you now, dude. Like, that was not the way to go about it. You should have just been like, hey, anybody have any Ushies? Just wondering for a friend.
So while you're talking, I just did a quick search because I didn't know what these were, but now I look at them, I'm like, oh, yes, they do. I stepped on 5 of them yesterday.
Yeah.
This is wonderful that he's turned this into a lure, but for people wondering, like, well, does it have some natural, innate, like fishy, baity looking something to it? No, like it's just a hard piece. It's
just a little molded piece of plastic in the shape of a figure. That's it.
So was he catching like more on the Ushies than the other people on the, like, is there a real secret here, or is it pure gimmick, or what?
I don't know. Like again, there's not a whole lot of information there. It doesn't seem like he's trying to blow it up. He just put up this post being like, hey, I'm looking for some Ushies. Found a use for them. Anybody want to give me their glow in the dark Ushies? I'm working on the snapper. But for their part, Woolworths is not excited about their trashy toys being put to good use finally. A spokesperson for the company told Yahoo News, quote, while we don't encourage the use of Ushies for fishing bait, they can be used in many other ways, from storytelling, taking care of them as special collector's items, or popping them on the back of pencils. And right now, I'm just calling BS on all of that. Ephemeral plastic toys, especially these fake collectible ones, are one of the foulest offshoots of consumer culture. So good on Mark for finding some kind of actual use for this disgusting flotsam. But he probably should have kept it to himself. That's all I'm going to say.
Something I'm taking away from this, and I'd have to do some research to find out if it's the same thing. I'm just blown away by this being Woolworths, which makes me wonder, is that the same Woolworths that used to be all over the U.S. and is now gone? Like where I used to shop at?
Yeah, but they're still huge in Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's one thing. Also, I mean, like you're going to get mad about this. Like if people over here got mad about people using ridiculous toys and shit to catch fish, there'd be somebody ranting and raving every day of the week. McDonald's, Disney, there was just something that popped up, some Nemo toy on YouTube.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, dudes catching peacock bass with that. But, I mean, I don't know. I think it's pretty frugal. You also mentioned Pogs. I was like, since we started this podcast, I was like, who's going to be the first one to work in Pogs? And it was you.
Nailed it.
So good on that. And now I'm thinking, like, I still got all them slammers somewhere. That, on the other hand, you could probably drill a nice hole through each end, right? Throw a little split ring on there. Mm-hmm. Those would also make a great lure.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think Pogs are too old for the new YouTube generation to be making Pog lures because they don't know what that is. So I called it, and we're gonna have to make some Pog lures. Dude, my kids have these similar Ushy things laying all over the place. There's not been one yet that I'm like, man, that would make a tremendous lure. So
that's why I'm giving Mark credit. Like, a lot of these things are obvious, right? Like, oh yeah, the swimming Nemo, you made a lure, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing about this looks fishy, but apparently he's doing well on it. So that's why I was impressed. I was like, this does not fit. I like this.
Here's what drives me crazy, and you have a son who's younger, so you might never have to deal with this. But see, I have a daughter who is 5. So for all the dads of daughters out there, like a lot of this stuff, and I don't know if Ushies is the same thing. The whole fun for the kids is like the unwrapping. Like LOLs come in a ball, and you don't know which one you're gonna get, and it's like a big surprise egg, and like that is what you're paying for. And then she doesn't do shit with them after she opens them. They just lay around.
It's gambling for 5-year-olds.
Exactly. So I'm gonna have to like start. I could take 24 of them and she wouldn't even know.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's gonna be there. Phil the engineer's gonna be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
We'll go from repurposing toys and frugal lures to this story. Great segue here, and this one's a little outside of the box. This is somewhere we haven't gone, at least in terms of source yet. So I got this as a hot tip-off from a friend of mine, Brian Schmidt. Do you happen to know Brian Schmidt? You know who he is? Schmitty? That name ring a bell?
Dude, I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. So Brian, for years, he was the guy in charge of fly development for Umpqua. And now he struck out on his own, and he started Brian Schmidt Baits, and you should check out his stuff.
Oh, yeah. I know this dude. Yeah, he makes amazing baits. Yeah.
Oh, Dad, the Schmitter bug and all that stuff.
Totally.
That's all him, right? Amazing dude. So now he's just Brian Schmidt Baits, and he makes all kinds of cool swim baits and rats and jigs and spinner baits. Awesome stuff. Anyway, just last week, he sent me a text, and it said, "Did you watch today's What's New at Tackle Warehouse video?" Apparently, Tackle Warehouse does a news video every week of like new products. And I know you bass guys especially know Tackle Warehouse, huge online retailer. So he says, "Did you see that video?" And then follows it with, wow. All I can say is it puts the lotion in the basket.
Ooh.
So I'm like, all right.
We're going Silence of the Lambs. Right? That's creepy. Okay.
Yeah, right? So I watched, and one thing new last week was the Manifold Dinero Swimbait. Now it's jointed, right? And it's this is kind of like a new lure release news piece, but it's just going to go haywire here. 13 and a half inches long and covered in leather. Now, that leather has what I'd call sort of a snakeskin texture, but all around the edge, it's hand-stitched, right? Like the Buffalo Bill skin suit, hence Brian's nod to lotion in the basket, okay?
Right.
So here's some of the description of this new Manifold Dinero Swimbait. Developed by the owner of Manifold Leather, who has over 34 years of experience in the fine leather industry in Japan, the Manifold Dinero glide bait boasts superior craftsmanship and was created for targeting monster-sized bass. It features a hand-carved polyethylene body, which provides the foundation and allows the bait to swim with a perfectly balanced, wide S-shaped gliding, blah, 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 because that's the description of every glide bait. Every glide bait is a wide S-shape. Okay, nothing new.
We've heard all this before.
This is nothing new. Okay, so you haven't hooked us there. On the outside, the Manifold Dinero glide bait is covered in hand-stitched 100% horsehide leather.
That's horse leather.
Horse leather that does not get colder than traditional ABS plastic, which ensures the bait has the same body temperature and texture as a living bait fish for a more natural presentation. And it says, as the leather progresses, the surface foil also becomes weathered and becomes more like a wounded or weak bait fish. And there are two disclaimers there. One is the Manifold Dinero glide bait moves properly once the leather has absorbed water. And be sure to read the instructions included in each box for proper operating and storing procedures. So this company, Manifold, as I understand it, is best known for fine leather goods, but also kind of dabbles in lures. Because the same video also showcased the hard bait from them with no leather work. Okay? But I don't know. I'm super curious about these instructions, and I can't find the specifics. But the dude in the video noted that you need to let it soak for a bit to let the leather absorb water.
Right.
Because if it doesndoesn't absorb the right amount of water, it can affect the buoyancy and action.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who has time for that? I just want to cast the lure. Who has time to think that much? Okay. And then he says the instructions feature specific storage tips so you don't ruin the leather. Now, here's the thing. And I sent you a photo of this. In my opinion,
I'm looking at it right now.
It's hideous.
It's
not
pretty.
at all. part of the swim bait deal is like, you're like, oh my God, that looks like a real brown trout, whatever. It's not at all aesthetically pleasing. And in fact, I find it very bizarre looking. And clearly you're buying the proposed benefits of the leather because to me, like I said, the action doesn't sound any different from any other glide bait, right? So here's the kicker though. Take a whack at the price. Go ahead. Take a whack at the price.
It's got to be at least $100 lure.
$460.
What?
$460, right? And that's just for there's another model that has some weird fancy metal face attachment that's $512. Okay, it's got like a Lecter mask. I actually think it's like to create, you can hang leads off it and like different time, but it looks like a freaking Lecter mask. So $460 for a lure, as Brian put it in a follow-up text, that you got to rub like a baseball glove. I mean, listen, dude, I have the utmost respect for the dedicated swim bait cult, right? I'm fascinated by the method. I wish I had more dedication to fish that way. I love it. But like swim bait dudes, this is a joke, right? Like, who is buying this?
That's the question.
Who's buying this lure?
And here's the thing: those, as you already pointed out, there are those very, very expensive swim baits, and they look a certain way. They look photorealistic. They have that incredible movement to them. All blah blah blah. This thing kind of looks like a high school arts and crafts project that someone's selling on Etsy. I mean, you can see all the stitching. It's not poorly done, but it's not super impressive.
It's not poorly done, but you wouldn't know it's like fine leather work by.
No.
You know, I take it Manifold's like Coach. So if like Coach made a lure and this was it, you certainly wouldn't pick up on that level of craftsmanship just by looking. And with all lures, dude, come on, man. We buy this shit with our eyes. You know it and I know it. How many lures are sold because of their shelf appeal? Oh, yeah. And if you put this next to a $25 Spro swim bait, guess which one I'm buying, even if I didn't know the price.
No question. And
so, I mean,
here's the other thing that I thought of. Here's the other piece that I thought of. I was really surprised to hear you say it was horse leather because I happen to know, just because I know weird shit like this, that people tan fish skin. You can actually take fish skin and you can tan it and turn it into
Make
fish
a wallet.
leather.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you use that on this product? Why wouldn't you use actual fish skin if you're going to go to this hand stitching, hand tanned level of craftsmanship? Why not use fish skin? That's where I'm a little bit lost. And maybe fish skin doesn't hold up as well. Maybe it doesn't work. There are probably things I don't know, but that was the first thing that I thought of.
And I feel like there's things I don't know because it's so new that even Tackle Warehouse, like there's not that much info about it. And I tried to just Google up the lore, and I mean, you get linked to all these Japanese leather making sites. I couldn't find like a direct link, but I even partially understand, you know, the desire for these hard to get Japanese swim baits and things. I see the same thing in the striper world. There's certain hand turned wooden lures that people just go nuts for. It doesn't really matter if they're fishing them or not. But I mean, at some point, this just goes beyond fishability. Like you're paying $500 for a lure that requires as much care and attention as a fine leather couch. Like, why would you do that? It's supposed to be thrown around in a lake, like in weeds and mud and shit, you know? And I've seen some wacky stuff in swim baits. This is next level. And what I would love to hear, maybe we can get a weigh in later, like from our friend Oliver and I, like a big bass catching swim bait chucking amigo, to weigh in and be like, yeah, I don't get it either. Or, dude, maybe we're idiots. And it's like, no, here's why this is next level.
Yeah, and on that durability thing, man, like the thing that I'm currently interested in with swim baits is throwing them from muskie. And I'm just imagining what happens when a muskie hits a leather lure. And I don't think it's pretty, especially one that I spent $400 and some odd dollars on. But I'm gonna stick with that and move into our final segment, which is a muskie story.
Okay.
And you'll also detect I'm a little proud of myself this week because I definitely stuck with a theme that you're going to detect. All right. And I hope it comes through pretty clear. So Greg Leonard sounds like my kind of guy. He's a land conservation officer from Augusta, Wisconsin, who also happens to be a hardcore muskie addict. He calls the Chippewa flowage his home waters, and I have fished that flowage, and it's an incredible place.
Big
like,
chip,
it is a
man.
special place. Despite the fact that Greg spends as much free time as possible muskie fishing and has been doing so for decades, he seems to suffer a similar fate or perhaps curse that you and I do, Joe, when it comes to big muskie, because he can't seem to crack a really big fish. He's stuck at 45 inches, which for the record is a very big muskie, but not the fish that muskie junkies covet. They all want the 50, right?
For the record, I will say if I caught a 45 on fly, I'd be like, and I'm done. Don't have to do that. I'd be fine with that. Be enough for me.
Yeah. But last August, Greg did a good deed for the muskie gods that I hope will pay dividends for him this fall. I hope what he did pays his karma forward and he gets his 50. Greg was fishing mid-afternoon one day, late August, when he hooked a mid-sized muskie, nothing special, fought it to the boat, put it in the net, hook popped free once fished in the net, and he's just about to release it when he noticed something odd. A mud-stained diving ring encircling the fish's midsection. Now, for those of you who don't know what a diving ring is,
which includes me, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm about to explain it. They're small hoops, like a few inches in diameter, usually used for swimming lessons and lifeguard training. So diving rings are specially weighted so that when you throw them in the water, they sink, but then they sit upright on the bottom.
Gotcha.
So that divers can swim down and easily grab them.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
because they're training tools, they're also made of really heavy duty plastic so that they can withstand years of use in pools. All right, so Greg catches this muskie and it has a diving ring stuck around its midsection. And the thing's been there a while because the fish has started to grow around the ring. And the ring is cutting pretty deep into the fish's body.
Yeah.
And Greg tries to pull the ring off like you would, but it is really, literally the fish is growing around it. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
So
right.
Here's where the story gets weird to me. Then he used a bolt cutter, and even the bolt cutter couldn't cut through the thing. But quick side note, man, who carries a bolt cutter on their fishing boat? I do not.
Every fisherman in New Jersey, but
really,
maybe, I don't know.
I'm just like, why do you
actually?
Bolt cutter takes up a lot of room on your boat.
I will say, not to get off on that, but I do know people who carry bolt cutters more so in case they need to cut the lock on their spare tire, like if their trailer tire pops or something and they can't find the key, stuff like that.
And maybe there were side cutters and the story got it wrong. I'm not sure, but I'm picturing a full-on bolt cutter and maybe it was misreported. I'm not sure. But anyway, if it was a bolt cutter, whatever it was, I'm glad that Greg had one because even though he couldn't cut completely through that ring, he did cut it enough that he could relieve the pressure on it and he was able to slide it off the fish and then set the fish free.
Okay.
And being a natural resource manager by trade, he showed the ring and the photos to one of his colleagues, a fisheries manager named Max Wolter. And they came up with a theory about this. Their theory, here's how their theory goes. Someone lost the diving ring in the lake, and it just sat there upright, sitting on the bottom for God knows how long.
Yeah.
And that muskie is in the area chasing bait, and the bait tries to use that ring to get away from the predator, and the muskie swims right through it trying to get that bait and gets stuck. And they estimate that fish carried that ring around for 2 years before Greg caught it and cut it loose. Which is amazing.
It is amazing, but there are similar stories out there. One that always sticks with me is I remember these pictures floating around of a striper that had metal arms from an umbrella trolling rig coming out of its stomach. Poking through its stomach.
Yep.
So we tend to coddle fish, as we should. Be careful with release and everything. But then every once in a while, you see one of these stories, and it kind of makes you go, you know what? They're a lot more resilient than you think they are. They're tough. You know?
And it's an anecdote, right? It's a cool, feel-good story. But I got to end here because Greg had a final note, right? And he was explaining why he's now publicly sharing this story. And he says, plastic toys have no place in our lakes. And I agree with him, but I'd take it a step further and say that they have no place in our bodies of water unless, of course, you're using them as a fishing lure and you're bringing them back out. I want to qualify that. But I, like everyone else, I have tons of useless plastic crap at my house, so I'm not getting all high and mighty on this, but I do try and minimize the amount of plastic that I purchase, and it's really hard, especially when you have kids and they come home from every birthday party with a bag of useless plastic crap. But try to be mindful about what we buy. And moreover, I am definitely that guy who will pull the boat over to pick up trash, especially plastic. And I hope all of you out there listening will consider doing the same. I'm not saying like that's going to solve the microplastics problem or like I'm saving the world or you will either, but it's something we can all do. And I think that this theme of if you're going to throw plastics in the water, make sure it's tethered to a line to catch a fish. Otherwise, just don't do it. That's where I'm leaving for today with fish news.
I think that's a great place. That was a great message. That was a great end. Okay, I'm with you on all that. It gives Phil a lot to debate because we've had quite a gamut of stories this week. So we're going to find out from Phil who clenched this one, and then talking about being mindful of what you buy. We're going to go right to Sale Bin right after we hear from Phil for a deal that, boy, you just can't miss.
Joe, give yourself more credit. You let off strong with that Jaws story, but I'm giving the win to Miles Nolte. Miles, I appreciated your theme of throwing useless, harmful plastic trash into the water, but I have got to go. I'm going to go try to bring in some ducks with a Peter Venkman Funko Pop. F***ing Ushies, mate. F***ing Ushies indeed.
Well, why did you put the head in the paper if you don't know what I'm getting at?
Well, you didn't have to be so hurtful with me, so angry.
We have been getting a steady stream of Sale Bin submissions from you guys, and we appreciate that deeply. And I gotta say, congratulations to listener Tony Cordero, because you, my friend, scored honors as our first ever Sale Bin item from the fan base with an absolute gem posted on Facebook Marketplace in Cowichan Valley, British Columbia. All right, so up for grabs this week is a 16-foot Winnebago with a 25 horsepower Mercury 2-stroke and trailer. Now, the official description reads, half trailer, half houseboat, 25 horsepower Merc 2-stroke. If you're looking for a project, parentheses, needs work, and a good time.
And a good time.
This is for you, $1,500 or best offer. And I can barely even describe this. It's so outlandish. I'll do my best here. So someone took like a 1960s or 70s model Winnebago, and we're talking about the smaller kind you'd pull behind your truck, not the all-in-one.
Hold up. I think I hate to cut you off here, but it's not actually a Winnebago.
Okay.
It's like a knockoff. I don't know what kind of trailer it is. It's just a cheap 70s pull behind trailer. But to call it a Winnebago,
it's not an Airstream. It's not an Airstream.
No.
But yeah.
I don't know
calling it a
what it is. You can't even see what it is. He clearly makes it the photos don't tell you the make or model, but this thing is not. This is some kind of knockoff brand. I can tell you that much right now.
Fair enough, because there was no brand jumping out at me. So I don't know trailers, so I just went with Winnebago. But not okay. But what they did here, they added a back deck, and then I guess somehow sealed up the bottom and turned it into a homemade houseboat. But here's the thing. It's still trailerable, right? So in other words, it's not like they chopped the bottom off the knockoff Winnie and then glued that into a boat hull. Like the tires and wheel wells and attached trailer tongue are all still fully intact.
Totally there. All of it's there.
So with the exception of the back deck and the outboard, you'd never know it was a boat, right? And I suppose someone could run with this concept and do this really, really well if they wanted to, if that was their calling in life. But this does not appear to have been done really, really well. I mean, I don't know, dude. I would not go out on the water on this vessel.
I wouldn't go more than 20 feet offshore on this vessel. I can tell you that right now. I think you have to, if you're looking at this, if you were looking at it from the front end, you would have no idea that it was anything but just a crappy old trailer. That's what it looks like. And then you flip it around to the back, and there's this strange open deck on the back, which, okay, that's a little weird on a trailer, but maybe you like to party outside. That's cool. But then there's a Mercury outboard hanging off the transom. Like there's a transom that's been reinforced and a Mercury outboard. I feel like this is so close to brilliance, right? I do.
Could go either way.
Because someone's like, man, you know what? I would love to have my trailer that I could just put on the water. Like, I love dragging around. I love doing, but I want a boat too. Why can't it be both? And my hat is off to the ingenuity there, but I am not sold on the engineering. That's where I'm not sold on this one.
Right. And again, it just looks like a box trailer. Like there was no attempt at like a V-hull or
No,
chines.
there's no hull.
It would just be like a floating box on the water. But there are shots of it adrift.
Yes.
Okay. With like a bunch of hippie kids on the roof.
It looks like a spring break party boat.
Yeah, raising hard ciders in the air.
Yeah.
But as you pointed out, a few observations I had in the photos, that sucker is very, very close to shore. Like they're not in the middle of Puget Sound in that sumbitch. Like it's right near the ramp or whatever. But now if you look at the interior shots of the cabin though, yeah, there's some water damage in there, right? Having grown up in a house with a basement that floods, I know moldy, buckling wood paneling when I see it. And there was water in that cabin.
No,
like,
no
a
question.
lot of it.
Having slept in old 70s trailers more than once that had leaky roofs and like had leaky roofs for a long time, that's what this looks like. Everything's peeling off the walls. There's definitely black mold hiding just under the surface of everything. And there's nothing that has changed about this interior since it came off of the assembly line in 1972.
Yeah.
Down to the floral print.
Yep, on the booth.
The booth,
and
yes.
I feel like we're thinking differently about this. Like, I almost feel like this was a joke, like a gimmick. Somebody slapped this together and they dropped it on the water just to prove it floats and take a few funny photos, but you couldn't call it a serious sound craft.
No.
But Tony did make a good point in his email. He said, how could you possibly get a BUI if you're at home?
That is a sound. Although I think that this has probably been settled case law when it comes to houseboats, but I don't know. I haven't dug into that one.
Yeah. And fun follow-up fact, okay? I recently re-clicked the link, and don't you know it's sold? Somebody slapped down the 1500 and is now the proud owner of the Winnebago.
I would honestly buy that person a 6-pack for their inaugural maiden voyage.
If that person is listening, please reach out to us because we'd love to know how progress is coming.
We want to know.
Anyway, Tony, thank you for sending the Winnebago our way. And to the rest of you, please keep the sale bin submissions coming. See some fishing-related nonsense for sale online where you live. Fire those links to bent@themeateater.com. Sadly, though, it is creeping in on that time of year when we're all forced to winterize our Winnebagos. But... if you're a glass is half full person, it's not all bad, you know?
Oh, winterizing the Winnebago is such a pain in the ass. And this episode, in a way, is kind of like a changing of the season. We started out with dry flies, and we know the hatches are dwindling, but if you're a streamer junkie, and Lord knows there are too many of you out there these days, listen up, because we've got a tackle hack from our buddy and streamer guru Brian Wise of Fly Fishing the Ozarks that we promise will up your game when you finally put the October caddis away and break out the sex dungeons. And side note, those are actual fly names, so please don't flood me with hate mail. I didn't make that up.
I'm getting hacked.
It's coming from inside the city.
Fight the planet!
Today, we've got a tackle hack from a extremely good friend of mine. Most of you probably know him, Brian Wise of Fly Fishing the Ozarks, the streamer OG, who is, as far as I'm concerned, you've popularized streamer fishing in this country. Agree or disagree?
Totally disagree. Are you kidding
me? No. Kelly Gallup might have tied him first, but you made him cool. Okay.
No, anybody can put stupid music to fly tying videos, and anybody can do that.
So you don't actually like the Skrillex music? Is that what you're saying?
Not at all. No, kind of hate it.
Well, aside from tying them beautifully, you are also a guide in Missouri. Been doing that for a long time, and kind of by default, whether you want to be or not, you are the streamer dude, which means that we need a juicy streamer fishing tip from you for all the meat chuckers out there. And God, there are almost too many these days, aren't there? But
I was gonna say, if you really are the guy that popularized streamer fishing, I kind of want to kick you in the nuts because 10 years ago, like it was just me and a couple of the dudes doing it, and now it's every bro with a flat brim and a drift boat ahead of me being like, "Bro, you ripping meat or what?" So if it was you, Brian, and I'm not saying it was Joe is, but if it was you, we may not be friends.
Dude, they got an 8-weight in one hand and a Brian Wise video going in the other on their smartphone.
On their cell phone, right?
But, as we've learned from you and many others, streamer fishing is certainly not mindless. There is craft and a lot of technique to it. So what do you got for us, man? What's something that you've learned is critical in the game?
Right. So, a lot of times when people think streamer fishing and your mind immediately goes to big flies and sinking lines.
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of the way it goes. So several years ago, sinking lines equaled like level leaders. Everybody would just say like I need a 3-foot section of 16-pound test. And this is where I disagree. This is where I kind of disagree.
You do?
So
okay.
I do. I totally do.
All right.
All right. So I feel like I have to sell you, Miles. Do I have to sell you on this?
I don't know about selling, but I'm very curious to hear your rationale and explain. Again, I'm sure you're probably right. I just want to understand it better because I'm probably doing it wrong.
I doubt it. So what we see so many times is we'll have an eat within 2 or 3 seconds tops of the fly landing right on the bank. Okay. So you can lay a fly on the bank, and before you have a clue what's going on, you already see a brown in the water shaking its head. It's on. It's there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what we need is a fly to turn over all the way. We need the fly to straighten out. We need everything. I mean, in a perfect world, man, you can make 100-foot cast and that last 4 or 5 feet turns over beautifully. But it doesn't always do that with a big fly and level line. So when you put like a 15 to 20 inch section of 30 to 45 pound mono, I'm still kind of a mono guy, but mono on the end of that sinking line, what you have is just a little bit of extra taper, for lack of a better word, to help turn over that fly. So you don't run into those times where you have a little bit of pile that ended up happening right at the end of a cast on a level line, and you're watching a brown's head shake and you can't come tight. So that's my thing.
So it's an insurance policy, really, for those ones. And it's just about basically staying as straight on that fly from the second it hits down.
Exactly.
Miles, how wrong do you feel right now?
I mean, are we comparing it to like a normal everyday conversation with my wife wrong? Or like I've really, really screwed something up in like my life choices wrong? I'm going to say it's more on the normal everyday side. My takeaway on this is that there's very little margin for error when you're talking about like that one fish that you want to get. And when you're throwing big flies, you're really after that one fish. And so what I hear you saying, Brian, is do everything you possibly can to maximize your ability to come tight to that. And that this, even it might only get you a couple extra inches, but those inches might be the difference between being successful and not being successful.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a valid point.
And we could all use a few extra inches at all times.
Damn straight.
Every chance I get. Yes.
We are about out of time here on Bent, which brings us to the end of the line, the segment that leaves you with a better sense of what to cast this weekend based on historical data and generally our worthless instincts. So this week, Miles is going to bring it home with a nod to an OG medal with some bling, and also managed to work in cocaine, lake trout, zealots, and something the entire province of Ontario should feel good about.
Fishy, 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 fishy!
Well, that's not loud enough, Bert.
Spoons are OG, at least as far as fishing lures are concerned. For thousands of years, anglers have known that if you drag something curved and shiny through water, good chance a fish will bite it. Over time, though, spoons have become pretty refined. You can find innumerable permutations suited to specific situations and species, but certain spoons have become iconic in modern tackle. And while I'm sure we'll cover some of the big ones eventually in this segment, I'm going to start with a slightly lesser known classic, the red-eyed wiggler. The defining characteristic of this spoon is right there in the name. It has 2 ruby red eyes. These eyes aren't painted on, as would become fashionable later. The original red eye actually had large, cut glass beads built into the body of the spoon, though the glass was later swapped for plastic, of course. Red-eye wigglers were thought of as vintage even when I was a kid, but they're still manufactured today. I remember being pissed about my family going to an antique store when I was like 10, but then I discovered the vintage fishing tackle section. I stared at those old boxes and rusted hooks until my folks dragged me out of there carrying a slightly tarnished red-eyed wiggler, certain that it held enough ancient mojo to mesmerize every fish that saw it. But I was wrong. I never actually caught a single thing on that lure, and it eventually moved from the tackle box to a shelf because even though I couldn't catch fish on it, something about it just stuck with me. It looked cool. But set aside my own inability to use this bait. Turns out the red-eyed wiggler has a pretty impressive pedigree, so there's a reason I was drawn to it. The lure came out in 1928, manufactured by the Hofschneider Corporation of Rochester, New York. The company's founder, Dr. Frederick J. Hofschneider, was a local dentist with a penchant for invention and fishing. In 1926, he patented the automatic dental lubricator, a device that revolutionized dentistry by reducing pain for patients getting their teeth drilled. Remember, this is the 20s. Novocaine wasn't widely used yet. I mean, they just got past giving people cocaine to do dentistry. At that point, dentists just strapped their victims down and dove in with foot pedal drills that got extremely hot as they bore through tooth enamel. Dr. Hofschneider's invention kept drill bits constantly wet, and that minimized heat from friction and pain and all the other things that went along with that heat. That didn't make cavity filling painless, but it was a heck of a lot better than the hot knife method they had been doing. And now it seems like that's the invention Hofschneider should be remembered for, the one that helped minimize pain, suffering, and collateral damage in dental patients. But no, it's not. He's remembered for a fishing lure. In fact, after a few years, demand for the lures grew so large that the Hofschneider Corporation stopped manufacturing dental equipment entirely. They went on to produce a whole line of red-eyed lures, but the wiggler remained their top seller and claim to fame. That fame was cemented in 1952 when Hubert Hammers caught a 62-pound, 2-ounce lake trout from the Canadian side of Lake Superior on a wiggler. That fish stood as the hook and line world record laker for nearly 20 years and is still the Ontario provincial record. The Hofschneider Corporation sold manufacturing rights for the entire red-eye line to Scotch Game Calls in 1979, and then Eppinger, makers of the Daredevil spoon, purchased Scotch Game Calls in 1994. So you can still buy brand new wigglers from Eppinger, and there's a whole cadre of northern pike and lake trout fishermen who swear by them, saying that the oversized red eyes act as strike triggers, possibly imitating immature smallmouth bass. Me, I'm still not convinced. I always found that these spoons had a tendency to roll instead of wiggle, so they had to be fished at just the right speed. But I think that's a me problem, not so much a wiggler problem. And really, who cares what I think about this lure? It's been in production for nearly a century and caught bigger fish than I've ever seen. It's the signature brainchild of an entrepreneur and inventor who, aside from his dental drills and fishing lures, also came up with new pinball machines and beer taps. The wiggler is more than just a fishing lure. It represents some of the greatest aspects of early 20th century America. That's more worthy of celebration than any record fish. For those of you keeping track this semester, we've learned that Joe is one of the few men on the planet that actually knows what a pillow sham is, why you don't hire a guide when what you really need is a marriage counselor, and that I'm about to get bombarded with emails about filthy fly names and my inability to fish a simple spoon.
Yeah, if you're digging the curriculum, please give us some stars and leave a review wherever it is you consume podcasts. Also, we love hearing from you guys, and we've been having a blast combing through your emails, so please keep those coming to bent@themeateater.com.
Yes, keep those bar nominations, stories, and sale bin items rolling in. Drink Black Rifle coffee so you can stay up even later, scrolling for ridiculous things to send us. Until next week, remember, hook sets are free.
But you still look stupid constantly swinging on nothing.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.